Hello, everybody. Welcome to the live Colorado Governor Q&A. We affectionately refer to this section of our programming as Advanced Colorado. So at the opening ceremonies, everybody was introduced to the idea of what we were doing here in Colorado to advance the state when it comes to modernizing public infrastructure with technology and collaboration and creativity. And this was and something that the governor was passionate about doing is really opening the microphone to allowing the community to directly speak with him about what's important to these efforts and how we're going to go about doing that. So we are still waiting for the governor to arrive in the queue. So while we do that, we also have a couple of special guests, both Vitalik Buterin. Hello, Vitalik. Good to see you.
Yes, hello. Good to see you again too, John.
And Kevin Owocki. How's it going, Kev?
Hey, John. Thanks for having me on. Things are good.
You hanging out on top of a peak with some bufficorns, it looks like there.
With some bufficorns. One of them brought their laptop up here. I don't know if he has Wi-Fi, but yes.
Yes, of course. So while we're waiting, we were having a conversation, Kevin, about sort of this convergence of public good infrastructure and Web3 technology or kind of new concepts that are being brought to these worlds. So can you tell us a little bit about the crowdfunding that was done, the experiment that you guys did up in Boulder there? And it looks like we got the governor, so we'll just go ahead and let you wrap for that for just a second, and then we'll jump right into the open mic Q&A with Governor Polis.
Hey, how's it going, everybody?
Hey, Governor.
Hey, Vitalik. Hey, John. How are you guys?
We're good. We're good.
Oh, I'm good. Thanks. How is everybody?
We're good. Can you hear us?
I sure can.
Okay. Well, I was just asking Kevin about an experiment that he had been doing up in Boulder around recovery for COVID. There was a quadratic funding experiment that he had done up there. We were waiting for you, so we were just letting him kind of tell everybody a little bit about that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, Kev, you want to give us the two-bit answer, and then we'll come back and let you finish it up at the end?
Yeah, for sure. Hi, Governor Polis. Hi, everyone. So we ran an experiment with quadratic funding in downtown Boulder, Colorado to support economic recovery related to COVID. Quadratic funding is a formula that Vitalik and Glenn Weil wrote that allocates matching funds to a community based off of the number of contributors, not the amount that was contributed. So we raised a $25K matching fund, and we distributed that along with a crowdfunding campaign to downtown Boulder. And all in all, distributed $38,000 worth of funding to downtown Boulder using quadratic funding and the formula that Vitalik came up with. So it was a pretty innovative way to support the Colorado economic recovery, and hoping to do more experiments like that to support retail businesses in downtown Boulder.
That's great, Kev. I mean, it's such a great example of sort of reimagining the way that we go about these kinds of things. So we'll get into that with our Q&A in just a bit. So, Governor, if you're ready, I'm going to go ahead and basically solicit from the community here. So here's how this is going to work, everyone. There's a Q&A function in Zoom that you can go in and drop a question in the queue, and basically we will give you reference by your name. So please put your first and last name or whatever you want to be referred to by. So Batman and Spider-Man's okay too. And then we'll go ahead and read the questions off, and the governor is going to go ahead and just answer them here live. So this is your opportunity to get a direct access to the governor of Colorado and get a little bit kind of a firsthand insight into what he's up to and what we're up to in the state. So go ahead and start putting your questions in the queue. Now, while we're waiting here for the first questions to roll in, Governor, we're a little biased, I think, both you and I. We live in Colorado, and I think it probably goes without saying that we like living here. But what is it that excites you the most about Colorado in the next 5, 10, 15 years when it comes to kind of the differentiation of our state? What makes the difference of Colorado?
Well, thanks to all of your efforts here, that we are going to have the best lottery games in the entire country, thanks to your work at this hackathon, and that will result in trails and wildlife conservation and corridors. And by the way, I wanted to show everybody this. I found this. This is my these are my bufficorn pajamas here, so I wanted everybody to see them here. Those are so yeah, we're gonna have the best lottery games in the country, which is really exciting. But also we just have a great quality of life, John. I mean, we have, and it really ties into the great outdoors because you can be indoors, I guess, anywhere, and we all often are. But Colorado is great, for scenery, for outdoor recreation, whether it's skiing, whitewater rafting, hiking, biking, fishing, all of the bird watching. We're going to go out. Perseids are coming up. We're going to go to a dark area with no lights and watch the meteor shower. We don't have to drive too far to do that. So yeah, those are all parts of our great value proposition in our state.
That's great. So how does technology play into this then? So, we talk a lot, I mean, Colorado as a culture is very outdoorsy. A lot of us go to the mountains or to the backcountry to spend weekends or even vacation. We don't even go that far. Like, we don't get on a lot. I mean, a lot of people don't even get on airplanes. We just go spend time here in the outdoors. But technology is a really important component of this strategy to really drive this next generation of innovation. So specifically Web3, or particularly Web3, but not limited to, what do you see technology as the main driving role here in the innovation?
Sure. Well, one of the things is, as there's more and more geographic independent employment, people can live where they want to live. And that's very exciting to us. But secondly, we want to use it to drive innovation of state services. So for instance, we launched a virtual driver's license earlier this year. Now we're working on the steps of getting law enforcement to be able to all interact with it, but we're hoping that very soon people won't have to carry their physical driver's license. They can simply have it on their iPhone or Android. The lottery is another example, right? We're tapping into this kind of amazing group in this hackathon to really design the very best games that can lead the world and help our sales that also directly correlates to protecting our wild areas. So we really look at innovation across all different areas, and we rely on the creativity of people here in Colorado and people that want to help us from across the world.
That's awesome. So on that note, there's a question coming in from Dave Anderson who asks, what are some Colorado blockchain and government initiatives that have actually made progress this year? So you mentioned the driver's license, but you want to talk a little bit about the My Colorado ID and that whole initiative?
Yeah, well, and also the question was particular to blockchain. So we have a group going in our Department of Agriculture looking at implementation of blockchain in ag. We also did a bill that created a safe harbor from a securities perspective for tokens that have value and convey value. So we're trying to do everything we can as a state to really embrace the opportunities that the blockchain presents and really looking at it as across different platforms for both security, as well as to kind of answer that fundamental question that people don't really trust sort of government or business with their information. They trust themselves, and a distributed ledger is the best way to empower people to have control over their own information.
So where do you see that going then? I mean, this could end up like, I think Lou mentioned in the opening ceremonies, like having virtual DMVs and things like that. Is that literally the goal?
Absolutely. I mean, we've actually learned a lot through the pandemic about different practices that we want to enshrine after the pandemic, and being able to do more of your driver services virtually is one. I mean, kids will probably need to take a physical driving test with somebody in the car. Like there's no replacing that piece. But for most of the regular services, there's no particular reason to go into a physical location.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of us agree with that. So we'd love to see that. So another question coming in from John Mikulek. I apologize, John, if I got that wrong. But he'd love to know your thoughts on using Ethereum or other cryptocurrencies to pay for goods and services.
Well, certainly people can use them and do to pay for goods and services across our state. Maybe he means like government services. So that would be interesting to kind of say how we could, for instance, if it's a fee for a hunting license or something, accept different cryptocurrencies. It's something we could certainly do.
There's been a few states that have actually allowed your tax payments to be paid in cryptocurrencies.
Yeah, for our budgeting to work, we would have to convert it back into dollars and fiat currency. I mean, of course. So it would just be, honestly, it's probably more of a novelty than anything else, because it would have to be converted back right away, and it would just, they would have to figure it out in dollars, because we tax their dollar income right? As you
Of
know.
course.
So
it would all have to be a representation of USD and whatever the market value
yeah,
is.
so at that level,
time.
it's kind of a little bit more symbolic than anything else because it's just, but yeah, we should absolutely try to figure out how to do that. It would be a cool feature and a few people would do it.
We'd be happy to help.
Yep.
So question from Nathan Schneider. Do you see intersections between your stable level leadership on employee ownership and the blockchain initiatives? Part 2 is, are there ways we can use blockchain to facilitate employee ownership for Colorado businesses?
Yeah, I'm really excited by all, forms of employee ownership. So we have stock options, ESOPs, co-ops, profit sharing plans, like all of those different models. A good example was, well, there's a lot of good examples across our state, but there's a grocery store chain, Save a Lot, which is 12 stores, all 100% employee owned. And a number of different breweries are also employee owned. So yeah, I think that, people are looking at and already are applying blockchain to cap structures and share ownership and verification. And I think it makes it easier for companies to have kind of micro owners and small owners. The more you can reduce the transaction fee associated with stock ownership or options, the easier it is for companies to use that. I was going to say New Belgium was a good example. When they sold to, I think, an Australian company about a year ago, the average employee there had between 100 and 200,000 in equity. So even their start, if they'd been there a few years and you were kind of 30, 40,000 a year employee, you still had over 100,000 in equity. Some people had been there a decade or more and had, close to 200,000 in equity.
What are your thoughts on using the Digital Token Act to somewhat tokenize these sort of crypto communities or these digital co-ops or whatever you want to call them, like with these new age sort of versions of, like what might be next, right?
It's a great application because it can reduce the transaction fee and friction and kind of and also the advantage of being secure and kind of neutrally administered through a distributed ledger.
Yeah, that's great. We got a question coming in from Jack Phillips. Hi, everyone. I'm startup and crypto investor in Boulder. To Governor Polis, Vitalik, Owocki, John, what kind of projects are you looking for that might put Colorado ahead of other states, regions with respect to blockchain efforts? What are the next challenges that startups could tackle? So you're a startup guy, Governor. I mean, you've been around the startup scene for, well, longer than I have, and you've seen quite a bit. What are your thoughts on that? What are the kinds of things that Colorado entrepreneurs or Colorado should be attracting in the form of entrepreneurs to be building on for next generation startups?
We certainly want to have kind of the best kind of regulatory structure for innovation. We want to make sure state government is not only not holding innovation back, but is empowering it, even pushing the envelope on what's allowable under federal law. We have a great tech community. We have a lot of great minds, great place to live. So I think that, we bring a lot to bear, and we have, private sector problems, public sector problems, the norm, but I think it's a great place to really work to be able to come up with creative solutions.
That's great. On that vein, there are, talking about incentives, like, attracting entrepreneurs and talent, and then also attracting the capital. What are some things that the state of Colorado is either able to do or thinking about doing to really, attract that next wave of entrepreneurs and capital to the state?
Well, we want our state to be a great place to do business, great place to live. Certainly the quality of life is part of it. People just don't want to come to a place where they don't like living. So maintaining and protecting that quality of life, including our great wild areas. When the pandemic's over, we'll have good nightlife again. Like nobody has it right now, but we do have good nightlife when there's not a pandemic. I think our bars close at 10 now. So, but we will have that. In fact, I'm kind of using that as a push. Colorado has this like obsolete law that nightclubs and bars have to close at 2 a.m. I don't know why. So I'm using this push now after the pandemic to get rid of that law. So I'm optimistic we'll have nightclubs that are open until 4 or 6 in the morning when this is all over. Which is great. And that might be a day club for somebody who's nocturnal. So we want to cater to both nocturnal and, oh my God, what's the opposite? Diurnal? I can't remember. It's a weird word.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
I think diurnal.
Yeah.
Diurnal. Yeah, that's great. Actually, I think everybody sort of scratches their head at that. I mean, it's sort of an arbitrary time and it's like, okay, interesting. A question coming in from Scott Sanderson. First a comment, then a question. Governor Polis, thanks for being informed about blockchain and helping make Colorado a place where people experiment and do new things with crypto and blockchain. Our question, are there any new blockchain projects or applications you're most excited about? Use cases that are, I guess, like what would be the thing?
Yeah, I would say the big holy grail, which we're not, to be clear, we're not like doing it in Colorado because it's fraught with complexity under federal laws, is healthcare and HIPAA and all those things. So like if we can figure out kind of HIPAA compliant, and this would have to be kind of national ways to kind of own your own healthcare information for it to be shared appropriately.
Data portability.
Yeah, that's like a big thing. That's a really cool thing. You know better than me if any people are playing around that space. It's just a really complicated space legally.
Yeah, I think well, anything GDPR or data, HIPAA related data, employment data, like our, you know, my project Opolis, or as you say, Opolis, is dealing in that problem as well. So
thank you for naming it after me, by the way.
Yeah, you already told me that once. Yeah. You're welcome. And I'll just go with it now. Even though, you know, inside, you know, we didn't, but we did, right? Yeah. Now we did. All right. Let's see. We've only got a couple more minutes. Governor Polis, I just want to make sure we're on track. Are you okay for one or two more questions? Yeah, sure. I'd love to hear, you know, Kevin or Vitalik offer some ideas for Colorado too before I have to bump off. Maybe they have a. Well, why don't we just sort of blend them here? So, you know, Kevin, you invented the Shill Colorado hashtag, which of course I am a co-inventor of. And, you know, the goal was originally for you and I to kind of, and the larger communities, because there's a whole army of people here that are working on this. You know, what is it about Colorado that is the attraction for you? What do you tell entrepreneurs and technologists and investors and just people who want a certain quality of life? What do you tell them, and what's the Shill Colorado?
Yeah, well, I think it's all certainly the things that the governor said. And Governor Polis, I don't know if you know this, but I'm a crypto entrepreneur out of the Boulder area. And the reason I came to Boulder from the East Coast is because I went through Techstars in 2008, which you founded with Brad Feld. Yeah.
In 08, a long time ago then.
Yeah, the OG one. So yeah, thank you for your efforts as a private citizen to bring entrepreneurs to Colorado. And I'm looking forward to seeing another generation of crypto entrepreneurs move to Colorado for quality of life and for the regulatory stuff that you talked about, but also just because of the great tech community that already exists here.
Yeah.
So Vitalik, you've been to ETHDenver 2020, and you were there with Governor Polis reading B is for Bufficorn on stage to, you know, our children here and it was a super fun time. What is it about events like that? Like, you know, it's a build-a-thon, you know, it's a software development competition. It's a exercise of creativity, if you will, for the host city, for the region. What do these events offer that can be, you know, spread and permeated into the community?
And I think they offer a lot of things. And I think, first of all, they offer a very clear signal that building new and interesting things is something that's valued. And I think just kind of giving people that sign is something that can be really important a lot of the time. There's a lot of interesting projects that come out. So out of ETHDenver 2020, there are definitely a lot of really interesting things being worked on, and some of the most interesting Ethereum projects in general have kind of passed through ETHDenver. So I think there's a lot of benefit to, even especially in projects that are just getting started, for them to kind of pass through a hackathon, use that time to develop, use that time to kind of get more people to learn about them. Just get kind of a lot of people from many different parts of the world together to just talk to each other when they otherwise wouldn't. So I think all of those things are definitely important, and it can also be a good opportunity to kind of emphasize particular themes, I guess. And the themes that I kind of really liked is definitely, ETHDenver, for example, had this very strong theme of like, we're going to build technology to actually help us organize this event better, and we're going to use it. And
that's a theory. That's the thought, at least.
Oh, yeah. Were any of you involved? I wasn't, but wasn't Denver the first place anywhere city to use blockchain for a vote. They used it for their overseas voters only. It was like 8,000 voters.
One of the only, the city was. Yeah, that was Amber back in the day.
Yeah, it wasn't me. I wasn't involved, but it was pretty
Yeah.
cool, Vitalik. So Denver was the first. It was just all Denver voters that were like overseas.
Only it was servicemen and deployed folks and diplomats. So it was we actually had the Denver Votes group as one of our sponsors in 2018 as part of the early support for that. So yeah, it was really cool. So go on, Vitalik.
Yeah, like in terms of like things built at and I've used at ETHDenver, for example, that I think are cool. And in general, like using blockchains for like tickets to events of different kinds. And I know ETHDenver itself is free, but there's kind of tickets to some of the features added, I guess, and things being sold and so forth. That's just one, like there's a lot of different places in the economy where people just kind of use 50-year outdated things for no reason, I guess, and even just kind of ticketing of events and ticketing of things at events to zoom in for a little is one where you can just make a lot of difference very quickly. There's to just kind of add on to the blockchain government applications. I think one thing that's worth emphasizing as well is that something doesn't have to literally be a blockchain application to be an application really useful to the blockchain ecosystem. So one example of this is if you look at even something like digital identities, right? Like, sure, you can have some kind of digital thing where you have an ID and where if you look, that ID is kind of digital and can be digitally verified in some way, right? But what if you take a step further and say, if you have one of these digital IDs, then you have a private key and there's some kind of signed message, possibly even being a message published to the blockchain, like that's what OpenCerts that's being used in Singapore does. Then, or at least they have revocations on the blockchain, but one or the other. If you have some kind of message to basically saying this actually is a kind of authorized identity that actually is a person, actually is an authorized driver or whatever it is, and then because the person has that private key, they can go on and participate in other applications. And in those other applications, they can authenticate themselves as, graduated from some university, has some driver's license, is a citizen here, just is a unique human, whatever, right? And if you just let people sign messages and then like the kind of authentication of is this account actually kind of authorized, that could be done with blockchains. It could also be done with kind of digital signatures potentially, but either way that could be useful to blockchain applications. I'd also add to the list definitely kind of different kinds of registries. Like one place to start might be corporate governance potentially. I know like trying to kind of quote register corporations on the blockchain is something that I know a lot of companies have kind of been doing as a layer 2. So they register the company for you and they set up a smart contract and you can kind of do corporate governance operations on chain with it, but trying to kind of be friendly to that sort of thing and potentially even integrate that sort of thing more deeply, I think could be interesting. Like the thing to look for is basically, are there places where you can kind of implement whatever needs to be implemented fairly quickly, and where I guess the risk is technical risk.
So low-hanging opportunities.
Low-hanging, exactly. And then you just start from there.
A question from Santosh A from India. So we have actually quite a few, it looks like we have quite a few international viewers on this. So the question is, what is your favorite monitor game and how do you see quality of monitor games getting affected during this contactless social distancing era? Anybody want to tackle that?
What is a monitor game?
So the monitor game is the thing that we're building for the lottery specifically with respect to the Keno interface, right? So even though we're not requiring a monitor game interface because we can build it any way they want, Monitor games are like when you go to a Buffalo Wild Wings and you sit down, they have the little game that you're playing on the little tablet thing. That's a monitor game.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody want to answer that? Governor, do you have a favorite monitor game? And
no, I'm a gamer, but I don't know monitor games. I'm
You're a gamer, not a
League of
gambler?
Legends, like World of Warcraft, like yeah, but like
if you want to nerd out on WoW, let's do it, right? But okay. Kevin, you play any monitor games, like specifically? I mean, I actually think the Kino interface that they're putting up seems pretty good. I'm actually personally really excited for the innovation that we see in the monitor game space because it's not my favorite. Personally, my favorite space, but I'm kind of with the governor on that one. I'm more of a gamer and less of a gambler, unless it's Texas Hold'em, and then you'll get me. But Kevin, you have anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I'm not a big monitor game person either, but I'm looking forward to taking your money at ETHDenver 2021 when the pandemic's over.
All right. Well, we'll see about that. Okay. We'll punt on that one. So that's our charity game, by the way, for those that don't know. We have a charity game that we support. We did Room to Read this year, which is an international reading organization for at-risk youth and just impoverished youth all over the world. So that was a lot of fun. Question from Denver is, how can we make Colorado physically safer using blockchain technologies, such as applying it to driver safety?
I think there's definitely potential in that area. I mean, I'd love, Colorado's no different than any other state or country, so I just love to see what other areas have done. But I think it could potentially, it might make it easier when officers pull people over to access information. There is a real problem in sharing information between states, like of people who might have traffic violations or other violations in another state. It's an issue with out-of-state drivers.
It's like trying to federate the data is really difficult, but like if you actually had it following the individual and the license or something on a blockchain.
Yeah, wouldn't that be great? Like even across countries, right? Like, and I don't just mean to the detriment of the driver, because we're saying, oh my gosh, they'll catch you if you did a crime there. Right, but I also mean to the benefit, like insurance, right? Like why wouldn't you be able to have, like, in different states, certainly, and then ultimately even different countries, on both sides, just kind of, your information should be attached to you, not in some state database that another state or country can't access. So I think there's a lot of benefits to people in terms of insurance, rentability, all those things.
All right. All right. Question from Dennis Luke. Where and when does decentralization matter to a project? Where and when is decentralization not needed? And examples. So, Kevin, you want to take a stab at that? You and I have actually had this conversation before. Governor, feel free to fill in, or Vitalik, one of you either. Yeah. But I know, Kevin, you've got a pretty clean answer on this one.
Yeah, I mean, I think that one of the things that we're learning about the financial system is that there's a trade-off between efficiency and managing risk. And so basically by having a decentralized technology, by decentralizing the economy away from just Silicon Valley and New York and having people move to Colorado, we're providing a stronger economy for the future. And so one of the benefits of decentralization that I'm most a big fan of is resilience that it introduces to an economic system.
Good answer. Governor or Vitalik, any other of you want to chime in, or do you want to let it lie? We've got a couple more questions, and then we're going to call it good right at about 4:30 Mountain Time. Be respectful of everybody's time. All right, with that, Governor Polis, this is a question from Brett Phillips. With all the recent developments with traditional sports gambling, we all know that's coming to Colorado. Or has come to Colorado. Do you anticipate esports gambling being legalized in Colorado anytime soon?
Yeah, I mean, we should look at it the same way. Now, we actually recently legalized sports gambling. Of course, at the same time, there's barely any sports because of the pandemic. So the timing wasn't best. But yeah, absolutely. I don't know if the current law covers that or not, but of course, people should be able to bet on esports the same way they do on sports.
Glad to hear that. All right.
If that doesn't exist in Colorado, it's a good idea for a legislator to just sponsor a bill that expands that.
Yeah. Well, I think we all know a few, so we should maybe take some notes here and pop that up. Question from John S. And if you're out there, everybody, I'll let one more question come into the queue past this one, and then we're going to wrap it up. There's a huge problem in federal agencies, SEC, FinCEN, OFAC, CFTC, et cetera, essentially chasing away US-based companies from engaging in interesting new blockchain-related businesses. How can Colorado stand up to champion and invite this innovation in a space where at the federal level, maybe they're not intending to do it, but it's sort of chasing away a lot of innovation offshore to places like Singapore and other countries? Governor?
Oh, who do you want me to handle that? Sorry, say that again.
There's a huge problem with federal agencies that are like the FinCEN, SEC, that have created some, quote, chasing away of companies that are interested in really innovating. So how do we embrace that? When you say creating a legislative environment or a regulatory environment that's actually friendly, what does that look like? Yeah,
so I mean, it means that Congress matters and the president matters. In Colorado and other states, we can do whatever we can under state law, but we are not exempt from federal law. So it certainly matters. It matters who we have in Congress, the actions from the president, the administration. So yeah, but like, as governor, I don't think about that much. I try to think more about, well, what can we do within the current legal parameters to provide the broadest safe harbor in Colorado, even pushing the envelope under federal law. But we should absolutely continue to push to make sure that America has a hospitable environment. And, even if they punt to the states and delegate more authority, that's fine too. But we don't want to see our country holding innovation back.
Well, it seems like, and just to dovetail on that, it seems like we're, Colorado and your efforts coming from having spent so many years in Congress, in the House, and now as governor of the state, a state-based approach, like many other big issues, seems to be probably the more likely approach to really getting things happening at the federal level over time. It's like, with what Wyoming's doing, with what we're doing, other states are starting to really put some of this stuff into high gear. It seems like if we get 10, 12, 15 states really making progress, then you're really making noise.
That's a good way to think about it. So it's kind of what we're seeing with marijuana laws. Colorado was also an innovator, first state to legalize marijuana. I think it was us in Washington State.
Which also has federal, problems.
Exactly. And ultimately it became enough states that there's finally pressure on the federal government and they're starting to kind of move. Same with this. I think you're right. Like what Colorado alone does, federal government won't pay that much attention, but you get 15, 18 states moving a certain way and making a specific call. I think you sort of start getting the federal government moving.
That's great. Well, Governor, thank you so much for your time. I'm going to leave you with just a piece of gratitude from us for all of your hard work and dedication to the state during COVID. I mean, and look, if you need more Buffacorn pajama pants, we'll hook you up. So no worries about that. And we look forward to partnering with you and your efforts to modernize the public infrastructure with technology and collaboration and creativity. It's just it's a really refreshing, I guess you could say, experience to live here in Colorado as opposed to a lot of my friends who don't. And I think we have a lot of upside here. So Vitalik, again, thank you for your time. Kevin, thank you for yours. Any parting comments on anybody's part?
I just want to say we're so excited about the results of this hackathon and for the lottery, because I think we can get a few great stories out of this that actually reach consumers. And in addition, the money all goes to helping keep Colorado special, like one of the very best things it could go to our great outdoors and trails and maintenance and conservation. So really a win-win. We hope to have some great stories coming out of that. It's just the beginning. I want to thank you, John, Kevin, Vitalik. Thanks to the whole community. We're really excited to work with you in this innovative way and partner with you.
Thank you, Governor. Vitalik, Kevin, any last parting words?
Go ahead, Vitalik.
I was going to ask if you wanted to talk about quadratic funding more. But...
Oh, we actually, we do owe Kevin a couple of minutes on that. Governor, if you've got to go ahead and go. Kevin, finish your quadratic funding. We want to know more about that and your experiment. So, of course, we teased everybody on the beginning. So
Sure.
Go for it.
Yeah, absolutely. So basically, quadratic funding is the results of a paper that Vitalik wrote with Glenn Weil, and basically the idea is that it's the mathematically optimal way of funding public goods that the citizens actually care about. And the way that you do that is you raise a centralized matching pool, and you deploy that matching pool alongside the crowdfunding campaign that you run. So what we did for downtown Boulder is we ran downtownstimulus.com, and we raised a $25K matching pool, which we distributed alongside contributions from everyday citizens who wanted to support businesses in downtown Colorado. And the amazing thing about quadratic funding is that it optimizes for the number of contributors in allocation of the matching pool instead of the amount that those people give out. So it optimizes for who's willing to give $1 to this business. And all in all, we raised $38K for downtown Boulder businesses at a time in which retail traffic is not really happening. So felt like it was a really great way to test a Web3 blockchain concept in an actual mainstream environment. So kudos to Vitalik for coming up with the idea of quadratic funding, and am looking to run larger pilot stimulus rounds as the recovery continues. I'm really a big fan of making sure that we have a democratic way of funding our public goods in Colorado, and the pilot was just a start. Vitalik, anything to add to that?
No, but over in Ethereum land, we of course had round 6 of our your Gitcoin grants quadratic funding recently, and I wrote my review post on that as I normally do for the rounds. It's quadratic funding. The mechanism is definitely kind of maturing and shaping up to be really interesting. So it's definitely been exciting to see just kind of what quadratic funding rounds concretely look like, what they concretely look like in the context of a community that's kind of larger, has more people participating, has internal disagreements at times, and actually kind of trying to see how it works in that real world context. And to me, the results have definitely been very encouraging. So I'm looking forward to seeing how we can try quadratic funding out in more context and at larger scales.
Yeah, for sure. The time is of the essence, in my opinion, when it comes to the economic recovery. A lot of money coming out from a stimulus perspective, and if we had a democratically optimal way to distribute it, I think that would be really great. And Colorado will hopefully continue to be an innovator here.
Yeah, agreed. I think it's fascinating to see. To me, it really is an advancement of game design. I mean, that's the way I look at it. It's really kind of taking, capital and allowing for the allocation of capital in a more optimal way mathematically, but it's really creating the right alignment of incentives for outcomes as well. So people are going to behave and build businesses that they're going to anticipate can get funded, right? And it sort of creates alignment in the entire ecosystem. I think it's great for capitalism, and I think it's great for funding. So I'm thrilled to see how we can support it. So Vitalik, any parting thoughts otherwise for anything else you'd like to share with the community before we take off, and why Colorado's so fabulous and maybe when you're going to move here?
You're definitely making a good place for a good case for Colorado, and I love the trees and mountains, and I of course grew up in Toronto, and Toronto definitely has excellent parks, and even especially kind of inside the city too. So just seeing the mountains right kind of outside of Boulder, and knowing that you can just make a day trip into a mountain trip is definitely really nice. And I definitely think those kinds of things are going to matter more in this context of more remote work, more remote network effects.
Sort of the new normal of sort of not having to be at these big epicenters of I agree 100%. Exactly. Well, you're welcome to come out anytime. There's always a mountain and a trail that we can get away to, so we'll look forward to the next time. Kevin, it'll be good to see you soon at some point. Thank you both for your time and your expertise. Thank you to everybody who took their time to participate online here. We look forward to seeing all of your insane creativity in the GameJam. Don't forget that there is office hours happening right now, where you can have your questions answered by experts in various different contexts. Our Discord servers are open. Also, don't forget about our incentives about our Frontier Airlines partner giving away round-trip tickets to Denver, as well as the social media incentives to post the CO Lottery GameJam hashtag on Twitter. So we're keeping track of all that. So we do appreciate everybody's engagement and support of this effort. Again, it's been an experiment to do it all virtually, but we love it so far. It's been great to connect with everybody, and we'll see you all next time. We'll see you at closing ceremonies. Take care, everyone.
Take care.
Bye, John. Thanks for having us.
Bye, guys.